Hello everyone, my name's Nathan, and it's time for the Steam Summer Sale 2018. Today I'm going to be bringing you my recommendations on a variety of games that I think are worth picking up, and hopefully there'll be something for everybody here, from massive AAA titles to smaller indie treasures. As always, the video will be divided up into games under £5, games under £10, and games over £10, and I'll be showing the dollar and euro value for every game too. So let's get straight into it with my picks under £5. So we're going to start off today with Saints Row 4. This installment of what was once a gang-driven franchise takes a pretty major detour from the other games in the series, as Saints Row 4 is set not in the real world, but in an alien simulation of that world, which allows for a lot more crazy additions. Instead of the usual driving around and shooting, Saints Row 4 gives you effectively superpowers, allowing you to sprint faster than any car, jump up buildings, run up walls, and much more. Of course, there's still the usual array of silly side activities, including my personal favourite fraud, and the inclusion of these super abilities only adds to the fun and stupidity factor of the game. Now, you do lose some of the core mechanics of the previous games in that you no longer need cars to get around, and there's almost never a time when you'll need to call in allies, since you're basically a one-man army, just running up to enemies and suplexing them. But what you lose from the old games is more than made up for, in what is really more of a superhero game than anything else. You're definitely not going to have a deep, meaningful experience with this one, but coming in at just £2.74 or $3.74, there's a lot of stupid fun to be had in Saints Row 4. On now to This Is the Police, a gritty game about making tough choices, corruption, and managing the resources available to you as a police chief. This is a game of two halves in my mind. The story sections, which will have you deciding on how to balance your principles against the realities of what you have to do, and the other half comes in the form of a management game. Sending your officers out to crimes that pop up around the city, and then potentially dealing with whatever they happen to find there. Now, there will be times when you don't have enough good officers to deal with every situation that arises, or even enough officers in general, depending on the decisions you make in the game. And it's up to you to decide how best to allocate your limited resources, and messing up can have pretty nasty consequences, with it even being possible for your officers to die. Fortunately though, the story sections and the management sections fit together quite nicely and mix up the gameplay to stop things getting too repetitive. This game doesn't shy away from serious issues either, so if you're looking for something with dark undertones, at £4.61 or $4.94, This Is the Police might be worth a look. Next, we're on to what I personally think could well be the best deal of the sale, in Just Cause 3. This beautiful sandbox game gives you an open world full of potential for destruction and chaos, and then gives you all the tools you need to make that chaos happen. Playing as a seemingly invincible Rico Rodriguez, you'll get to grapple and wingsuit your way around this gorgeous and quite frankly massive map, liberating settlements, taking on challenges to get equipment upgrades, and just generally messing about. Now, there is a story here based around rebelling against a murderous dictator, but to be honest, most of the fun here will be the fun that you make for yourself. Even so, at just £2.69 or $4.49, there's a lot of game here for the price, and with Just Cause 4 due to launch later this year, it might be time to give this series a try. So from one island paradise to another, we're on now to Tropico 5, a city builder that's somewhat simplified compared to other games in the genre, but still offers a lot, including a strong campaign with a good sense of humour, and a sandbox mode where you can attempt to build up your perfect little banana republic, all while dealing with demands from outside forces, potential overthrow by your own people, and natural disasters such as earthquakes which roll in and destroy a fair portion of what you've built up. Now, what sets Tropico 5 apart from the other games in the series is its implementation of an eras system, which sees you face different challenges as the game moves forward, as you'll start in the colonial era dealing with the crown and working towards declaring your independence, and then you'll move into the World Wars era, balancing relations with the Allies and the Axis powers as to not anger either of them too much, and then onto the Cold War and modern times. This system means that the game doesn't get stale until right at the end, as up until that point you've always got new challenges being thrown at you, and the eras of this game is what makes it my favourite in the series. Tropico 5 is available for £3.74 or $4.99. Next is Deus Ex Human Revolution. a game that sees you take control of the newly augmented Adam Jensen as he investigates conspiracies while learning to live with and unlock his new powers. I can't help but love this game as it allows you to not only shoot your way through enemies to get what you want, but also use stealth to make your job easier and in certain circumstances talk your way out of a tough spot, which can also be helped by your decisions on what augmentations to unlock. Sure, shooting may be easier, but it doesn't always lead to the best outcome. Now this one is a bit old and looks a little rough around the edges by today's standards, but the less than beautiful graphics and yellow tint on everything are more than made up for by an intriguing storyline that'll have you flying off all around the world, and by the extremely fun gameplay and exploration. On sale for just £1.94 or $2.99, I feel that Deus Ex Human Revolution shouldn't be missed. And sticking with the theme, the next game I want to talk about is Deus Ex Mankind Divided. Now, I won't spend too long on this one, as a lot of what I'd have to say is more of the same as what I've said about Human Revolution, and I've also talked about this one a lot in the past. But while some have criticised the shorter length of Mankind Divided, and I think everyone agrees that the pre-order bonuses that were pushed in the original marketing of this game were just horrible, the actual game itself is still excellent, and those less than polished graphics from Human Revolution now look pretty damn good in Mankind Divided. Honestly, it baffles me that this one is available already for just £2.99 or $4.49, having only released less than 2 years ago. And if you buy this and Human Revolution, there's a great story and potentially maybe 50 hours plus of great game for under a $5. Orcs Must Die 2 is next, and this is a wave-based horde game that could easily have been pretty bog standard, but thanks to a wide array of traps, weapons and enemies, there's always something to keep you on your toes. The objective is to stop the enemies reaching a certain point in the map, and you have to get creative with how you do that. Sure, you could just spam wall traps, but what happens when flying enemies attack and just go straight past them? Or when quick enemies just dash to the end of the level while those traps are on cooldown? That's why you have to plan out what you're going to do and use a variety of traps and tactics depending on the situation. Now, this is a game that's best enjoyed in co-op, so if you can get a friend to pick it up as well, at £2.99 or $3.74, it might be worth a look. Almost at the end of the under £5 section now then, and I've gone for Polybridge. A game that seems to be a very simple one at first, about building a nice little bridge to get a car from one side of a river to the other, but you'll quickly learn that it's a lot more difficult than it looks. And with the game throwing new complicated tasks at you all the time, including ramps to jump to the other side, and hydraulic bridges that raise and lower to allow ships to pass through, you'll soon be tweaking and modifying run after run to make it finally work. There's also a sandbox mode and Steam Workshop integration to add more content to this one alongside the campaign. Now, as you'll see from the footage here, I'm pretty terrible at this game, but even I had a lot of fun with this one, and the sense of satisfaction you get when finally beating a challenging level makes it all worthwhile, even if the bridge collapses immediately after that. Polybridge is on sale at £2.69 or $3.59. And we're going to finish this section with Reigns Her Majesty, which offers the same simple gameplay as the original Reigns, with every interaction just being a choice between two options, but with new choices to make and now playing as a queen instead of a king. The basic idea is to manage your kingdom in such a way that no one branch of the empire becomes too strong or too weak, and almost every choice you make will have an impact on this. Now, you will die in this game, a lot, but you'll always come back as the next queen to take things forward and try again, and the deeper underlying story means that it doesn't feel like you're just doing the same stuff over and over again. It feels instead like you're actually progressing as you die and then move on to the next. Now, if you haven't played the original Reigns, I'd recommend that just as highly as this. But for anyone who's played the original and wants more, or for anyone who'd just rather play as the queen than the king, this is a great choice, and it's the cheapest game on this list for only £1.04 or $1.49. Kicking us off in the under £10 category then is a game that I personally have put way too much time into in the form of Slay the Spire. This turn-based deck builder will have you battle your way through random dungeons with one of 3 characters, picking up cards, relics and curses along the way. There are 3 worlds that you have to beat on each run, each getting progressively harder with a tough boss at the end. Now the real goal for me is to synergize your cards to get maximum effectiveness out of them, but RNG plays a massive part in that, as I've certainly had runs where I knew I needed one specific card to make my deck work, but I never got that card, and you'll have to adapt your original plan if you still want to win. Now this may not be the biggest price cut of the sale at £7.55 or $10.07, but given that I've got 67 hours of playtime from this one, and quality playtime at that, I think it's more than worth the price. Dark Souls 3 is next, and it does exactly what you'd expect it to. It offers that challenge and depth that fans of the series want, with the massive boss fights and exploration alongside the deep and sometimes confusing lore of this intriguing world. And while I am personally dreadful at the Dark Souls games as well as Bloodborne, it's obvious why this series is a success and so many people love it. So for the latest release in the Dark Souls series to be available for only £9.99 or $14.99, if you've ever looked at any game in the series and thought it might be something you could get into, now is a great time to try it out, and as far as I'm concerned there's no reason why you'd have to play the original or Dark Souls 2 first. Next up is Ori and the Blind Forest Definitive Edition. This is an astoundingly beautiful platformer that offers wide open levels to explore rather than funneling you down a narrow path. And the upgrade system opens up even more paths and opportunities as you not only get new abilities at set points in the game, such as the double jump, but also decide on other improvements such as combat abilities. This game simply oozes charm, and despite some difficulty spikes and other little hiccups that can make some parts of the game less enjoyable than it usually is, the overall experience here is excellent. The next Ori game is coming later this year in Ori and the Will of the Wisps, so if you want to see what it's all about before making your decision on that one, Ori and the Blind Forest is on sale for £7.49 or $9.99. On now to Prey, a game with a great sense of atmosphere and tension, due to its unique enemies that can take the form of any normal looking object on the map, meaning that even when you can't see any enemies, you never feel truly safe, because you know one could pop up and surprise you at any moment. Prey will have you exploring and trying to find out what's going on initially, and a strong upgrade tree means that you can modify your character to fight and explore in the way that you want them to. For example, hacking turrets so that you don't have to fight enemies yourself, or leveling the leverage ability, allowing you to pick up heavy objects, revealing new paths. It's all added to by an interesting alt history storyline, which sees JFK surviving the assassination attempt in 1963, and if you pay attention, you'll find some interesting tidbits around the ship. Combat sometimes feels a little bit simplistic, but there are a decent number of ways of taking out enemies, and the glue gun that freezes them in place provides a nice way to allow you to get a couple of pot shots off at stronger opponents. Prey is on sale for £9.99 or $14.99. Time for something a little bit different now, as I'm not recommending a game here, but instead hardware, as we come to the Steam Link. This little bit of kit has been amazing for me, allowing me to stream from my computer in my office to the big TV in the living room and really relax while I'm playing my games. It does this at a solid 1080p 60fps, which is perfect for me, and so long as you've got some kind of high-speed wired connection, I use a powerline adapter, you shouldn't have any problems here. The other fantastic thing about the Steam Link is that it works so seamlessly with a bunch of controllers, and I use a PS4 controller with mine, no problem at all. Now you could buy this in a bundle with a Steam controller, but personally I wouldn't recommend it. To my mind, it's too much of a controller to be a mouse, and too much of a mouse to be a controller, and it skyrockets the price of this to a point where I just don't think it's worth it. Now I've got this one down in the UK as £2 plus £7.40 post and packaging, so a total of £9.40, but prices may vary where you are, largely depending on the delivery service. The Division is next, and while this wasn't quite the game I was hoping for when I first saw the trailers all those years ago, what it is a solid third-person cover-based shooter with a massive amount of loot to collect, and if you're someone who enjoys the grind, particularly in a PvE environment, then this is a great game for you. It's also got one of the most beautifully detailed worlds in its recreation of New York, and you'll do well to see anything better than this in gaming. And while the game gave me no interest whatsoever in the story, and there were certainly sections which I felt let me down slightly, for £8.39 or $9.99, I think this is a solid game. Though you should remember that it will require Uplay, so if you don't want to go through that, fair enough. Death Road to Canada is the second to last game for this section, and this game is designed for multiple runs, as you and your team try to escape the zombies by fleeing north to the safety of Canada. Death Road to Canada provides randomised locations and events to keep things fresh, and has you making choices based on limited resources. For example, going into a dangerous area to get fuel, or going without a car. What really makes this game for me though, is something that I always love to see in games, which is customisable characters. It's so much fun to name your survivors after your friends and see what stories develop, and then obviously tell that friend in real life how useless they were to you while you were trying to survive. The addition of local multiplayer makes that experience even better as you try to survive with a friend. Death Road to Canada is available for £6.04 or $8.24. And the final game in this section I want to mention is one that always seems to come up, as it's always going for a good price during sales, and that's Cities Skylines. I won't say too much here as I've talked a lot about this one in the past, but Cities Skylines is one of my favourite city builders, having a good amount of depth without overwhelming players with complicated systems. Building up your city from just a few houses to a place actually worthy of being called a city is so much fun, and while things do slow down a bit later in the game, there's still easily enough here to justify the £5.74 or $7.49 price tag. Into the over £10 category then, and we're going to start with my go-to multiplayer shooter, Rainbow Six Siege. This 5v5 shooter has really created a huge market for itself over the past few years, and it's still growing. Its team-based gameplay along with destruction-packed levels that allow for loads of different tactics certainly keeps me coming back for more, and while newer players are at a bit of a disadvantage, not knowing the maps or which dirty spots they can go and hide in, after a couple of hours of play, you'll start to get the hang of it. Even though, after several hundreds of hours of play, you still won't have truly mastered the game, and there'll always be someone with a strategy that takes you by surprise. Now, this game is fun when played solo, but it's infinitely better with friends, since information is key to winning, and communicating with friends is the best way to get that info. There is a starter edition available for Siege for cheaper than the standard edition, but I would strongly recommend not picking that up, and shelling out the extra few pounds for the standard edition, as you'll get access to the operators so much more quickly. Now, pricing for this one was a little bit hard to find since there are so many editions, but I can say that it's £17.49 in the UK, and I believe it's $19.99 in the US, but I'll put a correction in the description if someone tells me different. Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice is next, and this third-person adventure offers a very different experience than pretty much any other game on the market, as it explores the challenges and nature of mental illness in the form of the main character Senua's psychosis. This affects the game in huge ways, with hallucinations changing the world around Senua and voices whispering in her ear throughout, and I'd absolutely recommend you play wearing headphones to get the full effect of this, although it is a little bit creepy if you play at night with the lights turned off. While it is this exploration of mental illness that really makes this game an intriguing one, it still has a solid combat system and the graphics are just sensational. It would be easy to mistake some of the sequences from Hellblade for a movie, and at £14.99 or $17.99, I feel Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice is an experience worth having. XCOM 2 is our second to last game for this sale, and I simply adore this game. The turn-based tactical gameplay offers so many ways to approach your targets, and the risk-reward system of trying to pull off something amazing but putting your soldiers in a dangerous position if it fails is so enjoyable. XCOM 2 took everything good about XCOM Enemy Unknown and just gave us more of it, with a great story based around taking the world back from the aliens, more combat options, and greater customization for our soldiers. And those soldiers quickly develop their own backstory as you go through missions, giving you a real reason to keep them alive rather than just viewing them as disposable resources. I've recommended this one before, but XCOM 2 is one of my favourite games of all time, and at £11.54, it's a bargain, though the US gets shafted a bit here with a $19.79 price tag. And from one of my favourite games of all time to my absolute favourite game of all time, it's The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt Game of the Year Edition. I recommend this a lot, so I'll keep it brief. But this massive RPG has you playing as Witcher Geralt of Rivia on a quest to save his friend/adopted daughter, Ciri, from the Wild Hunt. But the truth is, you'll probably play the game for a good 40 hours before you get anywhere near that quest, because there's just so much more to do around every corner. This beautiful world will drag you in, and the additional content that you get from the Blood and Wine and Hearts of Stone DLC that comes with the Game of the Year edition offers so many more hours of great gameplay for very little outlay. Witcher 3 Wild Hunt Game of the Year edition is on sale for £13.99 or $19.99. Anyway, there's my recommendations for the Steam Summer Sale 2018. Please remember that these are just my recommendations, and if you've got anything to add, please leave it in the comments to help others find great games. I can't cover absolutely everything, I haven't played absolutely everything, so if you know of other great games that are going for a bargain, let other people know. If you enjoyed the video, I'd be very appreciative of a like down below, and subscribe for more like this if you haven't already. Anyway, thanks for watching, I've been Nathan, and I'll see you next time.